I love to use statistics to prove my point. I was always really good at numbers. See, I can solve a Rubik's Cube in 45 seconds. But in 22 years, I haven't been able to piece together a home. I moved around so many times that we stopped unpacking. Boxes, piled on boxes, it was easy to find the square root of every problem, but never the solutions. How can I think outside the box when I'm so used to packing my life into one? I'm great at puzzles though, so I learned quickly how to fit in. I love Tetris, but if there's one thing it taught me, it's that fitting in only makes you disappear. There's a reason my mind is so good at numbers. 12 is the number of schools that I have attended. 9 is the age that I had to become the man of my house. 16 is the number of houses I've lived in. 0 is the number of homes. 0 is the number of childhood friends. 0 is the number that haunted the bank. We were homeless. 5 people in one room. No, one van, no one around to put a roof over our heads. 11 is the age that we struggled to find the money to eat. Do you know what it's like to be hungry? To be rejected by strangers, friends, and even family because you can't afford to pay a bill. I'm still that 11-year-old kid. I'm hungry. You're worried about your television shows and your non-hand-me-down clothes. I'm worried about the number of meals I eat in a day, the number on the price tags of food, the number of mouths to feed in my family. I learned how to be hungry. But society taught you how to be silent, how to dehumanize the hungry, because at least if we starve, it won't be on your conscience. 500,000 homeless in America. 48 million living in food insecure households. I refuse to be a statistic. 0. The number of people that helped us. 0. The amount of trust that I have in people now. Nothing in my life has been permanent. But I learned how to be silent too, because we give 0 volume to the voices of the homeless. I will no longer fit into this puzzle of America and disappear. I'm still hungry. I'm hungry for something permanent. I'm tired of math. I am done adding up everything from my past and always getting a negative answer. Watch me create history. Then I'll have something to turn back to. Watch me use chemistry with my surroundings to create a permanent geography that I'll remember. I will no longer be silent. Watch my English create riots because the science of starvation is real. Until 0 is the amount of insecurity that I feel, until 0 is no longer the infinity in my life, I will not stop. Because this hunger to live is the only thing that keeps me from just becoming another statistic.
Hello, dear Rockstar. We are so lucky today to be here with Sam Tarell, and as you just heard, wow, a spoken word poet and so much more, right?
Yep.
Yeah. For people that don't know you, Sam, tell us a little bit about, that was a pretty powerful poem, right? Tell us a little bit about growing up, being you.
Well, growing up, I was raised by a single mom, 2 brothers, 2 younger brothers, an older sister. We didn't have a lot. I wasn't very privileged as a child. So I adapted quickly. It was easy to change. It was easy to find my way, actually.
Yeah.
I actually learned a lot from it. And honestly, growing up, I feel like I learned how to really fit into any situation.
Yeah.
More so than just staying in the same place. I've learned to appreciate the fact that I've moved around so much, and the fact that, you know, we didn't have a lot growing up, and now I can really appreciate the things that I do have today.
Yeah, you really captured that. I mean, how do you write your poetry? I mean, how did that poem come?
That poem, it's funny, that actually came from my brother. He actually gave me like a line, specifically
Which one?
The Tetris line, where I say, I learned quickly how to fit in. I was always good at Tetris, but fitting in only makes you disappear. He actually like helped me write that line, and then I was like, I don't know, it just hit me really hard, and the whole poem was based around that specific line, and yeah, it just took off from there.
So growing up, single mom,
Mm-hmm.
moving a lot, and having to figure that out. So tell me about a time growing up that has informed some of your choices.
I think like a lot of my inspiration, I guess, a lot of what I do with my life has come from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, she was an entrepreneur growing up, and she was able to work from home while being a single mother of 4 kids. Just seeing what she can do for us, it really helped me to pursue everything that I wanted to do. It really changed the way that I see the world, and it never felt like we were going through something. Like, it never felt like a struggle.
Wow.
It always felt, and like looking back on it now and like writing that poem, I can see it's hitting me a lot harder now that I'm an adult than when I was a kid, because it always felt like this is life, this is family. We were always happy. And I credit that to her 100%.
What did she do that allowed that? Because that's unique, right? Like, that's a gift.
I don't know what she did specifically. I wish I did, so I could, repeat it. And
Yeah.
when I'm a parent, I can be the best parent in the world, just like she was. And she always just encouraged us. She never shut anything we had to say down.
And when there were financial challenges that you were going through, the focus was just on.
Yeah, it was never a focal point. We might have had, hand-me-down clothes, or we didn't have maybe one computer in the house. Like, for a long time, we didn't have laptops or phones or anything like that, but we had each other, and that was enough,
Powerful. So tell me a little bit about, when was the first time you had this inkling? So you see your mom starting things. What was your first experiment?
I always knew that I wanted to do something with basketball. In my business now, Hoop Brothers, we do basketball recruiting to help high school players get to college. But that was always my passion. As a kid, I was like, I'm going to play in the NBA. I'm going to play in the NBA. And it wasn't until after high school, I had some opportunities to play in college, but I chose to pursue business instead. And it wasn't until after high school that I really I decided that I was going to start my own business as opposed to pursuing college basketball. And I realized that I didn't have to play in the NBA to be pursuing basketball full time.
Okay.
And I was able to use my passion to help, thousands of other players play at the next level.
Tell me, how did it start?
It actually started when I was in high school. I edited my own video.
Okay.
We actually started doing, videos for players, but I started by editing my own video to help me get recruited for college. And I loved the editing process. I just loved the whole process altogether. And after I graduated, then I went to help my brother, help some of his friends. I was working with a training facility to do all of their videos, basically for free, just to get the experience.
Yeah.
Because I had never picked up a camera before. I didn't know.
Okay, so this first time that you create your own, you're creating your own, and then you just start kind of falling down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, so it was just, when I first started, I had no idea. I was just like, oh, this is fun. I could make a couple $1,000s, or I was excited about helping, 10 players. And, it transformed quickly to where I was able to help thousands. And it really escalated to a point where I was like, okay, I don't know when it hit me that this is okay, this is what I'm going to do, full time. This is what I'm going to do permanently. That was always the goal, but I never believed that it would get to where it is now in the very beginning. As it kind of escalated, I started to see the next steps and the next steps. And then now it's blown up to where we're a national, becoming certified as a scouting service. So yeah, it's really blown up a lot.
Interesting though, it starts by you finding something you love doing. And at that point, it wasn't I'm starting a business.
Right.
At the point you started getting the feedback that people wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't really a business it was, I was trying to make money at it, but it was little to none. I was just doing it for fun and to help, players that.
What was the thing that happened that really was the difference that took it to the next level?
There was one event in particular.
Tell us about it.
It was funny. I actually was working at Sears at the time. I was working at retail.
So you got your gig on the side.
Yeah.
And you got your video production company.
I was working full time, and I was in school full time. And we had an event coming up that I was like, I want to be at this event to offer players this video service to get recruited.
So
and
you're
the event.
You're working, you're going to school, and you have your own gig going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was an event that was on a weekend in, I believe it was November or October. At the time, it was about 4 years ago. And the way it worked at the outlet store that I was working at Sears, we had to work every weekend. So we had to pick at least one day. And I actually ended up telling my boss, I was like, I need these days off. This was a few months beforehand, obviously. It's like, I need these days off. And they're like, we can't give you those days off. And I told them, I was like, if you don't give me these days off, I'm not going to show up. I'll call out because this is really important. And luckily, I was one of the top salespeople there, and I had a great relationship with my boss. So they allowed me to get those days off because they saw how seriously I was taking it and how important it was to me.
Yeah.
And they allowed me to have that. So I went to this event, and we made I think probably sold 20 videos or so.
So you sell 20 videos at one event. That makes you how much money?
At the time, it was like $800.
Yeah, and you're like,
Yeah, I was like, this is real.
the day back at retail would have made.
Yeah, like I would have made maybe $50 or something like that.
So that was the moment where.
That's where it hit me that like, okay, like how can we grow this? How can we scale this?
So that moment you get it. This could grow. This could be it. I could be my mom doing this in basketball.
Yeah, that's when I realized I was like, okay, I've got something here.
Yeah.
And that's what really pushed it to take off, I think.
As you look at your journey as a starter and entrepreneur, have there been some key inflection moments or biggest challenge? Most challenging moment?
I think that was a pretty challenging moment to have to challenge my boss and say, look, I can't come into work when you expect me to be here because I'm going to be doing XYZ at this event. I think that was definitely like, internally, that was hard for me to have the confidence to do that.
Early on, it's like, is this real? What was another time?
Like doing events like that event was really scary. It was really difficult to go in there and say, okay, I have to have business cards, I have to have staff. I had to hire videographers. I just grabbed a couple of my friends in the beginning. Yeah. But that was definitely scary to have to tackle big projects, and that to me was like a huge project. Was this one event.
Like when you're actually employing someone now.
Yeah, exactly, and taking the risk. Like I was looking at it and I was like, I'm gonna have to pay them. I'm gonna have to pay for the business cards. I'm gonna have to pay for all these things I had to pay for. I was like, we're gonna have to make money at this, or I'm gonna lose money.
Right.
So that was kind of scary. I think in the beginning that was the biggest challenge, and then the challenges just got bigger from there. Then it was like, okay, how do I do 2 events at the same time? How do I have an event going on without me at it? Like that, when it got to that
how
point,
do I move from working in the business to on it?
Yeah. So when it was like, okay, we have 4 events this weekend. How do I manage this? How do I make sure that we have all the staff there that we need? How do I make sure they have all the material they need? And that was probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Was being able to scale it to where we have events everywhere, as opposed to just me being at the event having to run everything, and letting go of that so that other people could take care of it and take over, and they've done well, and it was definitely my biggest challenge.
This is a people-intensive business, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to go, we have to video shoot, we have to get the footage, and then we have
Right.
to come back and edit it. What are you learning about hiring people? And
Definitely, hiring is probably the hardest thing. I think in business, the hardest thing is finding people that share the vision that you have and the passion that you have and are dedicated. Because you never know if somebody, especially when I'm hiring somebody who's in another state, thousands of miles away. Like, how do I keep track of this person?
yeah.
And we set it up where they had to check in with the event director and things like that. But still, in an interview, a phone interview or a Skype interview, how do you get to know a person that well that you're just going to say, okay, I trust you to go to this event?
What have you learned from your best hires?
The main thing we had to learn is to tweak the interview process over and over and over again. So we got it down to where we ended up having to ask a lot of questions about character, just things like, give us an example of a time that personal things came in the way of work and how you handled it. And that question actually got a lot of good responses. But it took a while. It took probably 20 or so interviews and times where people messed up, where we actually got it down to where now it works pretty efficiently.
Right? You're learning all these things the first time you're doing them.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, let's spin back a little to the poetry thing.
Okay.
So you early on see your mom being an entrepreneur, but tell us about, go all the way back.
For poetry?
Yeah, where did that begin?
That probably started in high school. It's funny, I actually started as a rapper. I was like, I'm gonna be a rapper.
You,
and yeah,
white boy rapper.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be a rapper, and I wrote a couple raps. They were really bad. I thought they were good, but
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, no, don't ever, no, it was bad.
Thank you, God, that I didn't go perform that.
Yeah,
right.
And so that's where it kind of started.
Okay.
And then I actually just stumbled across a spoken word YouTube video, and this was probably like 11th or 12th grade. And I was like, wow, like it just really hit me.
Did you go to it in?
No, it was actually online, and I was like scrolling through my Facebook feed or something, and I saw a video. It looked like a dance, like the way the picture was, and I just clicked on it. I was like, huh, what is this? And it was like a spoken word about education, and it really hit me hard. And after that, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want to rap or anything like that. This is really powerful. So that kind of like changed my whole mindset on that, to where I started writing more poetry, trying to hit more of like a deeper message, because that's what I was about from the beginning. And I feel like rap doesn't have as much opportunity to get into those deep messages as much as spoken word does.
Well, talk to us about that. What's your why around spoken word?
That's been something that's tough for me. I've kind of gone back and forth on that, because initially it was like I want to really, I think the main thing I want to do is bring light to topics and things that most people don't think about, most people don't realize, even about themselves, more so than trying to bring a new thought, rather to like something that they already know within themselves.
So take them inside?
Yeah. And I really like to like challenge the status quo, like challenge what we were taught growing up, and like
what part of
society
the status
says.
quo are you most interested in challenging?
Definitely, following your passion. And I feel like older generations, no offense,
you just can't hang out with millennials without getting like age slammed, right? That's all right, I'll get you back.
I feel like a lot of times the way things worked in the past isn't necessarily how things work today.
Right?
And like a lot of my friends and family and different people I've seen, have graduated or are working in school still, and they don't really know what they're gonna do. They still haven't really found their passion and their niche and what they want to do that's going to make them happy, not only like financially successful, but happy, like something that they care about, something that's important to them. And I think just challenging that and letting people know that you can really do what you want to do in this world. Like you can really follow your passion, and if you follow that inner voice, it will externally bring success. But a lot of people try to chase it the opposite way. They try to get the external success and think it'll make them happy inside.
How did you get that? Because I would say that that's kind of like what we'd say a wise soul, right? We say, that's wisdom. How did you get that?
That's something that's I've developed over the past couple years, to be honest. Is more of a spiritual aspect to my life that wasn't there as much before. Honestly, like my roommate, Bobby, he's been a huge influence in my life, and just how I see the world and how I am in tune with myself, more so than I've ever been in my entire life. So I think surrounding yourself with the right people, people who are going to push you to be a better self, as opposed to people who are negative in your life.
Well, there's two things. I mean, we're talking about the exponential rate of change, right? When you say, like, this is not your grandfather's economy, is one of the things I say, right? Because things are, with technology, we're doubling capabilities every 12 months.
Right.
So we used to think very linear in change, but change is now exponential.
Yeah.
And so when you look at people your age, what do you think is what's the barrier for them understanding their potential?
I think fear is the biggest thing that holds most of us back. I think fear and expectations. A lot of people have expectations on them from parents, family, friends, even themselves. Sometimes people expect themselves to be a certain way or do a certain thing, and they say, I should be doing this. But I think fear is the main thing that holds everyone back.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cliche, but I feel like it's really important that you don't fall into that trap of being afraid and telling yourself, oh, I can't do that because A, B, C, D.
Do you have fear?
I think I still have fear.
I have fear.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's not having fear.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people, or have you written about fear?
Yeah, I have written about fear, and failure specifically, like what it means to fail. And I don't believe that failure is, honestly, I don't believe failure is real. Like, I really think that you can't fail. in school you can fail a test or something like that, but I feel like failure doesn't exist because you haven't failed yet. You know, you can always continually go for that same goal.
Right.
Like until you die, right?
Right.
And then you can no longer go for that goal. But like whatever that goal is, you can still achieve it. So like you haven't quite failed, you just hit a barrier. And like you can either quit at that barrier or you can find a way around it. And one of the biggest challenges for me was building this, like establishing this one national partner that we have. And when I first started, I went to them at the very beginning. And I said, hey, I want to do this, you know, locally here. Because I was like, I can't do this large scale. Like, I just
Right.
didn't believe I could. I probably could have if I had, you know, put a lot of energy in and thought that I could, but I didn't think I could. I told myself I couldn't. So in the beginning, they were like, we need somebody who can cover it on a broad scale. And I was like, okay. Came back to me a year later, they said the same thing. And then it wasn't until the next year where I was like, I'm going to try to do this big time. And I told them that, and they were like, okay, let's do it. And they had another company they were working with, but I was, you know, genuine with them. I was establishing good communication, conversation. It took 3 years.
So you come to them 3 times. 3 times they really tell you what they need from you.
Yeah.
If you'll go national, we'll work with you.
Right.
And then on 3rd year, you're finally at that place
Yeah.
of belief
And they
that
were
you can
working
step
with,
into it.
yeah, and they were actually working with another company doing it, but they were saying, you know, they weren't doing a great job the way they wanted it done. They had gotten great feedback from us in the past that we'd done one of their events early on, and just good communication.
So unless you give up, you don't really fail. That's
Exactly.
your take on it.
Yeah, unless you give up, you don't really fail. And I think, like I said, in school and growing up, failure is like something that we're like taught, you know, like we're motivated by failure. Even in society, I feel like if you do something bad, like you go to jail. If you fail in school, then you fail, right? But there's not a lot of positive motivators out there. Like if you do something great in this world, what do you get? A high five or like there's not really, and not even monetarily or anything like that. I'm not saying there should
Right.
be, but it's just interesting. When we do something bad in this world, like we're motivated by negative things. Like do good, otherwise you're gonna do bad. As opposed to like do good for the purpose of being good and pursuing something in a positive way as opposed to a negative way.
Yeah. Like who do you really want to be?
Yeah.
Who inspires you? Like who are people that have informed who you are becoming?
I think my mom's definitely a huge inspiration.
Yeah.
My roommate Bobby has inspired me in a lot of ways, challenged me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, friends, family. I don't really have any like, you've inspired me a lot, to be honest. Like that,
I set
the
you up,
national deal
like-
that I talk about, like wouldn't have been possible without your help.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate you. But I don't really have any like external role models that I don't know personally, like celebrities or anything like that. Everybody who inspires me is directly in my life.
Do you have daily practices or what I would call spiritual practices? What do you do to stay?
A little bit. I've been trying to do that a little bit more. Meditation is something that I've done a few times, and I would like to do that more.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've done consistently.
Yeah.
But when I do it, it's been very like clearing of the mind, you know.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would definitely like to make more of a habitual practice. Honestly, basketball is something that like when I'm on the basketball court, nothing else exists. It's weird to say, but I could consider that almost a spiritual practice because it's like when I'm on that basketball court, it's home, you know? And that was like the one place I always had where nothing else existed.
Yeah.
And like that's still that way today. I'm not the greatest player in the world. I would like to think that I'm pretty good, but yeah, it's just more of like a home to me than anything else. And I think that having that outlet of my energy
Yeah.
is huge.
So how do you define success?
I think success is defined by the individual. I think it's really hard to define success on a massive scale.
Oh, I love that. I just want to hold like sacred space around that, right? Because I believe like that we've been created uniquely, right? And so what you just said resonates so powerful because in my soul, my call, my purpose, my mission might be very different than yours.
Right.
And that might look very different in terms of success.
Exactly.
Okay, so you said it's different for every person.
Mm-hmm.
What has to happen for you to succeed?
I think success for me is I think I'm already successful.
Yeah, that's good.
I believe that, I'm in tune with myself completely. And I think more so than anything in the future, being successful in this moment, regardless of what this moment means to me, is success. And I think from an impact standpoint, like I want to touch people's lives and things like that. I don't think that I define that as my success. I think that's more something that I would like to do and that I try to do as much as I can. But I don't think I'm not a success if I don't.
So your success is just...
My success is more internally being okay with myself, being in tune with myself, following my passion, following my why, following everything I believe, being completely and not being disrupted by fear or not being scared of failure or what I should be doing based on expectations of myself or other people. Just being very clear about me, who I am, what I want to be doing. Not even what I want to be doing, but just where I am right now and being in this moment.
It's powerful. A book that's been most impactful?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad was a really, really impactful book for me.
Why? Because many people say this book was the book that changed their paradigm of what was possible.
Right. I think just like seeing like how he talks about an asset versus a liability, and how an asset is like something that brings you money as opposed to a liability, something that takes it away. And like I take that to my personal life, I take that to my business life to try to put myself in a position where I'm getting assets and not liabilities. So I think that was probably the most impactful thing.
Yeah.
But just in general, it opened my eyes to see like, honestly, after I read that book, I was like, I learned more from this book than I did in like most of my college classes. Like,
you heard it here. Yes, right?
and since then, like I've been like, I love to read now. And like before that, I didn't read a lot of books in school, or I was always like not the reader. Like I hated when I got called on to read in class. I was like afraid to like mess up or something.
Yeah.
But I think like that book really like opened my mind to books in general.
Yeah.
And now I try to just like, I'm addicted to it, like finding new books and new things that I can change and adjust and grow from. I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that they can't, like, you don't know the whole world. Like, you don't. Everybody's perspective is different. And to like open your mind, it's really cool. Like,
so what's next for Hoop Brothers, your company? Tell us a little bit about where you're at right now and what's next.
well, where we're at right now is we actually just finished a national, our national partnership. We had like 53 events in the spring, and we just finished that up. So that went very well for us. That was our probably most successful spring we've ever had. Definitely the most successful spring we've ever had.
Yeah.
And
from saying yes to that offer.
Yeah. And that was, well, we got the deal last year, but we've gotten it down now.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that was a huge success from where we are now.
So what's next?
What the next step is for us is we're going to do more than just video. What we're doing moving forward is basketball recruiting across the board. So we've been offering some like one-on-one coaching, consulting to help players get from high school to college, where we'll actually send out things to the college coaches for them.
Okay.
But now we're becoming certified as a scouting service.
Wow.
Which basically means we can work with the college coaches as well as the high school athletes. And it means the information that we're going to provide about the athletes is something that the colleges want to see as well.
Okay, so you're now becoming kind of a connector?
Yeah, so we're doing, like I said, we're becoming certified as a scouting service. So we're working with the colleges. We will be working with the colleges. We're not, it's still pending right now. But we're launching a new website, a platform that allows players.
Is it all under Hoop Brothers?
Yes.
Or? Okay, so Hoop Brothers is now help you get into college
yeah.
and play ball and make your video. But it's not just about the video.
Exactly. We're going much bigger than that, because I think the video is the key to getting, one of the keys to getting recruited. Colleges want to see you play. You know,
right.
Like sending them an email with your height and your weight and your stats is not as direct as them actually seeing you play live. So I think the video is very important, but there's so much more to the recruiting process that I feel like we can do to help.
Why should people have you as their recruiter? What have you learned that's what you're going to be able to do for them?
Well, the biggest thing that separates us from any of the competition is that we are specifically geared toward basketball. Been doing it for 4 years now, not necessarily the recruiting itself, but
right.
Been around the recruiting process.
Working in that vertical.
Talked to college coaches, been around scouts, worked with thousands of players, all in basketball. You know, a lot of the competition is is, or the other options out there, work with every single sport. And that's what
Okay.
so many people tell me is, why don't you do every sport? And the reason I do every sport is because I don't know every sport. I know basketball really, really well. And I think that if we capitalize on what we do the best, and everybody that I've hired, everybody who works around me, knows basketball
Yeah.
really, really well.
This is the sweet spot.
Exactly.
This is what we're passionate about.
Yeah. And so that's what we're knowledgeable about. That's what we know. So it's not that, we're not just trying to make money and get anybody to play any sport that we don't have any knowledge of or passion of. It's really geared towards basketball because that's where we know what we're talking about. We've worked with, like I said, thousands of players
Yep.
directly with colleges, scouts, high school coaches, AAU coaches. We know the industry. We know what it takes in terms of what you need to have in order to get recruited. I can look at a player and within a few minutes have a good idea of,
Like what the gap is.
yeah.
So how do we contact you online? What are your different social handles?
Hoop Brothers, hoopbrothers.com, and then on all social media we're just Hoop Brothers.
And then what about your spoken word?
The spoken word, I'm on Instagram as Samuel Silence. I haven't been as up to date with that as I would like to be.
Okay. So when you think about starters, makers, entrepreneurs, is there something more you would have to say to them today, or anything else you'd like to say?
I think the biggest thing is just not to be afraid. Not to allow failure to scare you. Because failure is really powerful. And I have a poem about that actually. That's
Okay.
about failure.
Yeah. So just keep moving through.
Yeah, just
swallow the fear.
Just push through.
Keep moving.
Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to fail and everything will be okay. Because you don't learn from success. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from failures.
So true, right?
Even if it's not even your own failures. You can learn from other people's failures. But failure is what pushes us forward, not success.
Yeah. It's the hard moments. It's the challenging moments. It's like gold. Remembering that we as people are kind of like gold. Like we're getting refined in these tougher times. The mountaintop does very little for us, right?
Right.
I mean, we think we all want to live there, but it's in these more challenging times that we become.
Right.
Well, you are an amazing young man. So we're going to catch up with you on Hoop Brothers, and we're going to listen to one more incredible spoken word poem right now. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. If I could tell you one thing, I would tell you to fail. Or at least not be afraid to. Failure is most of our greatest fear, holding us to the starting line of our dreams, and when the gun goes off to signify the start of this race, we freeze. Afraid that it signifies our death because we think that we only have one shot at this. But your ammo is only as limited as your imagination. You can fire dream after dream after dream into this world and watch as they become realities. But this fear manifests in almost all of our decisions. Standing on this cliff, we are afraid to jump. Afraid that if we jump, we'll just fall. Not realizing that we'll just fall in love with what we do because failure is beautiful. It's just another achievement on the path to success. Most people don't get it right the first time. So a lot of us will never try. We never really decide to chase our ideas, but then we never really quit. We sit somewhere in this gray area just waiting for opportunity to come knocking. Because we're told that good things come to those who wait. So we're waiting for the weight on our shoulders to lift, forgetting that every day of this life is a gift and the only restrictions we have are the ones that we put on ourselves. Because good things don't come to those who wait. Good things come to those who act. And courage is not the lack of fear, it's strength in the face of it. What would any of us be without our failures? Without being able to learn from our mistakes and the mistakes of others in school? We are taught a lesson and then given a test. But in life, we are given a test that teaches us a lesson. I promise the fear will lessen and the success will be more impressive if you had to fail to achieve it. So I give us permission. No, I encourage us to fail. And when we do, we help each other up. We stand together and rise, learning from each other's mistakes, embracing each other's flaws, realize that success is abundant and we can share it with all. There's no shame in the fall, only pride in the jump. So let your failures be known. Let your success shine bright. Don't be afraid to start. We are rock stars for life.